So it looks like the exclusivity for Final Fantasy is finally coming to an end, as during the Xbox showcase they announced that 7 Remake, Intergrade, and Final Fantasy 16 will both be heading to the Xbox. Now, interestingly enough, there's a quote directly from Microsoft that talks about the future of exclusivity for Final Fantasy that I think is really, really interesting. So we're going to break down that quote and these announcements in today's video. If any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button. It really does go a long way to support the channel. And if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Alright, before we get to that Xbox news, I gotta give a shout out to a game that really stood out to me during this Xbox showcase, and that is Invincible Versus. Now look, I know next to nothing about Invincible. I've never watched the show or read the graphic novel, but I'm aware of some of the characters and the memes just because they're super popular. But I do love me a good fighting game, and this Invincible Versus is going to be a 3v3 tag fighter. Yes, tag fighter fans, you're eating good right now. We got Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, which is 4v4, and now Invincible Versus. And what makes this even more exciting is that, according to Maximilian Dude, the devs behind Invincible Versus are the devs behind Killer Instinct 2013. So the OG members of that game have gotten together to work on this game, which means it's got an incredible pedigree behind it. You know it's going to look good, sound good, and it's going to play really, really damn good. So I'm pretty excited to see more from that, especially Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, also being developed by Arc System Works, and they know how to put together a really good fighting game. So the future of fighting games is seemingly really, really bright, especially for tag fighters. Also, if you would like to hear my thoughts on Resident Evil 9 Requiem, as well as the new Onimusha trailer, I'll leave a link to my Summer Game Fest recap video in the description down below, because there was a lot of fun stuff to discuss in regards to those two games, especially Resident Evil. We're going back to Raccoon City, baby. It's going to be nutty. Now getting on to the Final Fantasy news. Final Fantasy is finally coming to the Xbox. During that Xbox showcase, we saw the Square Enix logo, and my first gut reaction was, it's gotta be 7 Remake. And sure enough, they played us a trailer for Remake Intergrade, which looks gorgeous. It looks really, really good. Obviously better than the Switch 2 version, but it's a more powerful, system as well. It looks beautiful. But they also revealed that Final Fantasy 16 is going to be coming to the Xbox right about now. Yeah, they shadow dropped it. So if you've got an Xbox, you can go and buy 16 right now. The standard edition of the game will be $49.99 and the complete Game of the Year edition will be $69.99. They're also going to include a demo for free on the Xbox, so you can try it before you buy it. But either way, this is great. Now, I have my issues with 16. I wasn't crazy about the side quests or some of the structuring of the game. I felt like it would have benefited from being a little bit shorter. But the combat, the music, the acting, those big action set pieces and big story points are genuinely really, really good. When that game hits, it hits hard. And it's a Final Fantasy game that I think does deserve at least one playthrough. I think you should check it out even if you're somewhat interested. It's got some really fun combat, some really cool stuff that you can do with the iconic abilities and combat and with Torgal. Also, again, I have to reiterate, we're never escaping Ben Starr, which is not an issue. The dude's lovely. I can't wait to see more of what he does. But yeah, 16 having a resurgence now coming to Xbox. I know historically Square Enix games don't perform as well on Xbox, but Final Fantasy has been absent from that platform for so long that I think it could potentially create a big demand of people who are like, yeah, I've been absent from Final Fantasy for a while now. I'd like to check out 16. I'd like to see what they're doing with the 7 Remake stuff, and now they can do so. Now, from my understanding, 16 or 7 Remake will not be on Game Pass. I didn't see the Game Pass logo in the trailers, and in the articles I found, there was no mention of Game Pass. So I think you will have to buy this separately if you want to check it out. But chances are, if you're interested in this, you would have probably bought it anyway, right? So this is cool, and again, we know that Yoshi P has been talking about bringing 16 to other platforms for quite some time now. I think he even specifically mentioned the Xbox in one of the interviews, so now it's finally here, it's the complete edition, and you can really experience some of those really awesome boss battles because they are absurdly good. Now, jumping over to Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, this actually does have a release window, and it's coming to the Xbox this winter. So anytime between November of this year and March of next year. But what's really interesting is that the Xbox version has a release window, but the Switch 2 version, as far as I can remember, does not have one, which says to me that they've probably been working on the Xbox port of 7 Remake for a while now, which I think might be the case. As we all remember, when 7 Remake came out, it was supposed to have a 1-year exclusivity window locked to the PlayStation, and then after that, we all assumed, oh, it'll go to Xbox and it'll go to PC. I even remember there was an Xbox social media post that had a montage of games in it, and 7 Remake was in that montage. They would later have to remove that video and issue a statement saying, oh, we accidentally included Final Fantasy VII footage in this montage. We're sorry for our mistake. You don't just include 7 Remake by accident, so I'm assuming it was supposed to head to Xbox back in the day, but something happened between Square and Sony which locked that game to the PlayStation console, because eventually we got to Intergrade, which again was a PS5 exclusive, and then I believe the following year it finally reached PC with Epic Games and then eventually went to Steam. But if their original intention was to eventually have it on Xbox, they probably started work on a port a long time ago. Whether or not it was something that they worked on throughout the years, or they're just now picking up where they left off, it would explain why this game has a sooner release date when the Switch 2 version doesn't have a release window yet. But that's just my kind of weird thought process. There may not be any truth to that. Now you may be wondering, okay, these games are finally coming to Xbox, they're coming to Switch 2, well at least 7 Remake is. What about Rebirth? I think what's going to happen is next year they will announce the Xbox port of Rebirth as well as the Switch 2 port, and I think it could be a similar release window. So Rebirth could hit next winter, i.e. winter 2026 going into 2027 to prepare for Remake Part 3. And again, that leaves Part 3 in a weird limbo. I've been saying I think Sony still has exclusivity over the entire trilogy, meaning Part 3 too. So it'll probably be a situation where it comes out on PS5, it's exclusive for a short amount of time, and then afterwards they can get going on Xbox, PC, and Switch 2. But I really hope I'm wrong. I really would love for Part 3 to release on everything, day and date. Really have this franchise, this trilogy go out with a bang and let people know like, hey, we're gonna be available everywhere. No matter what console you got, you can experience this incredible trilogy. Now, here's the really interesting thing in regards to exclusivity in the future of mainline Final Fantasies, and this was in one of the Xbox articles for Final Fantasy 16. They just randomly threw it in there at the end of their summary, and it says, every mainline single-player Final Fantasy game will now be available on Xbox platforms, with Remake Intergrade also coming this winter. Now, unless I'm reading that wrong, that essentially confirms, yeah, all future mainline Final Fantasies will not have any exclusivity agreements with them. They're releasing day and date on PlayStation, potentially Xbox, Switch 2, and PC. And that to me is a really big important piece of information that they just threw into an article that most people probably won't even read. And if I read that right, which I'm assuming I read that right, yeah, that confirms that even something like, you know, a Final Fantasy 17, when that releases, it will be multi-platform, which is pretty big. That also just reinforces what Square Enix again wants to do moving forward, realizing the value of going multi-platform with all of the restructuring and making sure that moving forward, all of their big AAA titles will be available everywhere. Now, obviously, maybe I read that wrong just to cover my butt. We will have to wait for full confirmation from Square Enix as they don't have any articles out right now. But again, that says to me, yeah, exclusivity, Final Fantasy, those two don't know each other anymore. That's coming to an end, thankfully. This is a franchise that really needs to be on every platform possible because their fan base, while it is smaller these days, has been scattered. Not all of the Final Fantasy players are strictly on PlayStation. A lot of people have moved to PC. There's a lot of excitement around Final Fantasy coming back to Nintendo, and Hamaguchi-san even really emphasized and reinforced how Square Enix is really excited to have that relationship with Nintendo again, which is a really, really big deal. Because back in the day, Nintendo and Final Fantasy, they were really close partners until Square Enix decided to leave Nintendo for Sony with FF7. And if I remember correctly, the way all of that went down was the then president of Nintendo had a lunch meeting with some of the developers of Final Fantasy, and they just broke the news to him like, look, we're gonna move to Sony. Their console gives us what we need for our next game. And from what I remember reading, everything seemed fine. The then president, whose name I'm forgetting, was like, yeah, we wish you the best on your journey. You've done so much for us. This is wonderful. Good luck. Well, sometime later, the then president of Nintendo would issue a public statement to Square Enix, then Squaresoft, basically saying, yeah, don't ever think about coming back. He would then go on to insult people that played RPGs. I think he said something along the lines of, people who play those games are lonely basement dwellers, and we don't need them. We're Nintendo, we got Mario, we don't need Final Fantasy or RPGs, we're doing just fine. FF7 eventually would come out on PlayStation and be one of the biggest games ever and would influence the gaming industry moving forward. So for them to go back to Nintendo too and strengthen that relationship and let bygones be bygones, for Yoshi P to say the same thing about the relationship with Microsoft, I believe Sarah Bond, who's one of the heads in charge of Xbox, even reinforced like, yeah, we're looking to rebuild our relationship with Square Enix. This is really big. You want to make sure Final Fantasy is strong and healthy, and the way to do that moving forward is making sure that everyone who wants to play it can play it, and you don't lock it to one platform. So with that being said, that is the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you read that quote from Microsoft the way I read it, meaning, yeah, exclusivity in Final Fantasy, that's done? Or maybe I misread it. But let me know what you guys think of that quote. What do you think of Final Fantasy finally coming back to Xbox and Nintendo? I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.